You made it. Well done. Please, have a seat. You are here to remember what you already know. You are here to expand and explore your knowledge of time and space beyond traditional instruction. Let me take you on a brief tour outside of the physical and the familiar as we venture into the world of mobile assisted language learning. See you on the other side.
So why the matrix, you may ask? I think partly because that's where artificial intelligence, big data, and a lot of other developments are going to be taking us. But all joking aside, we are really living in a very interesting time. I think kind of a key moment in the history of education. We don't quite realize it yet, but first and foremost, we have developments that enable us to essentially put computing power into everything. So forget about devices, forget about mobile learning as something to do with a cell phone or a tablet. I mean, this device here, the Michigan Micro Mote, can sit on the edge of a coin and is a fully functioning PC essentially. You could, and people have, put this into a pill, give it to a patient, they swallow it, and it records information like, blood sugar levels and what have you, and sends it out to your physician. That means that you can actually now integrate opportunities to collect and send out data pretty much anywhere, anytime. And this has been around for a while. I mean, I've been using devices like these lily pads for 10, 15, 20 years now. They are available for like a dime each, and they're little sensors. We've used them in New Zealand, and we've stuck them on like cupboards and so on, so that when a learner opens a cupboard in our experimental room on their phone, it will show them, open the cupboard door, close it, or lift up a cup and put it down, and not, like put it up and lift it down or something, right? So learners are kind of just walking around and going about their daily lives and getting additional information as they do so. Now, all of that is really, really converging into something called the Internet of Things, which you've probably heard of, and that is only really going to be exploding in the coming years. The estimation is about 75 billion devices will be connected around the world using, communication protocols and specialized software and hardware. But essentially what it's about is that anything from your bicycle that you ride on to the tap that you use sends out and collects and what have you data that can be used for all sorts of purposes. And the question, of course, for us is, well, how can we do that in education? You might imagine that you walk into a classroom and the classroom or the chair knows that it's you and records your presence. Or the library manager might be able to see that the facilities are underused on a particular day of the week. So even such simple examples already are highly beneficial. And this is just the beginning. I mean, Samsung and Google and many other companies have started to develop these kinds of wearable devices. They're like contact lenses, and they overlay what you're looking at with electronic information. So you might be wearing one of these, walk up to your learner, and as you are speaking with the person, you will see their name, their GPA, any particular areas of difficulty that they have, and so on. In other words, the division between the physical and the digital is basically starting to disintegrate. Very exciting. Lots of really interesting technological developments. So why do our classes still look like some sort of variation on this? And as the famous scientist Obi-Wan Kenobi said, well, I won't read it out, but you can read it here. Yeah, this is a big question. Why are we, after 2 years of remote teaching, blended learning, and all sorts of new models, saying that we want to go back to the classroom? I'm not saying that the physical classroom doesn't have a lot of value. Of course it does. But can we perhaps enhance and augment it using some of the ideas and technologies that are available to us? So what's the first point? Well, the first point is for you and people like you to start thinking about, well, what do all these technologies, for example, mobile resources, what do they bring to the table? How can they help us? And I'm not going to go through all of these. I've included some references, but take, for example, portability. I mean, this is one thing that you might think of pretty quickly. You can take devices like your cell phone around and they're portable. And that's very important because, it's convenient. But really, The question is, how does it support learning? By the way, this gentleman here is Mr. Anderson, and that's not a Matrix reference, who is holding up a brick of a phone, making the first ever mobile phone call. I think it was 1987 or something like that. So quite a historic moment that you're seeing there. But the point is, how does something like portability affect learning? Just because something is portable doesn't make it pedagogically relevant or interesting, right? So that's really what we want to know. And again, as an example, portability can support distributed learning. Now, distributed learning, the idea that learning doesn't have to take place in one area, in one place at one time, but it can take place anywhere at any time, is a very, very powerful pedagogical notion. That's what we're interested in. So a question would be, could we use a mobile device, like a tablet, whatever our learners may have, to extend their learning beyond, for example, the physical classroom? I'll give you one more example. Looking at augmentation. You all know, of course, augmented reality. You look through your phone or whatever, and you see additional electronic data displayed on the screen. All familiar with Pokemon Go, I'm sure. But how can you turn that into a pedagogical benefit? Well, one way to do that is to link and blend the physical with the digital world. And as a couple of examples that we've worked on in Japan, this one here allows learners to leave comments and descriptions of physical books. So a boring old library shelf suddenly becomes a site for learners to give each other comments and advice and to review books and so on. Or take this example. This is a boring old textbook that we have to use in class because it's prescribed in our curriculum. But of course, it's really easy for some learners and way too hard for others. So what we do is we allow learners to use their cell phones. They hover over the text, and if a learner finds the text really hard, they are given additional vocabulary and explanations. But if a learner finds it really easy and finishes the task early, there are some extension questions and further information. In other words, it's allowing us to take a physical object and personalize it and expand the opportunities for learning. The last example is a campus tour that we had our students in Thailand make for future visitors. And they were really excited about that because they had to go around the campus, take photos, interview people, make little video recordings for future visitors to be able to walk around the campus with their phones and learn about the different facilities. It was very motivating for them, and embodied learning as a pedagogical affordance enabled them to actually learn by walking around, not just sitting still behind a desk the whole day. And that was quite new and fascinating for them. Key message, pedagogy first. It's people like us, people who understand learning, people who understand language, who have to approach a technology and see if it can meet our needs. It's the pedagogical opportunities like making learning ubiquitous or providing for social opportunities for learners, not just in but also beyond the classroom, that really make the potential benefits, the affordances of technology available to our learners. But again, it requires us to think about the potential benefits. And the final thing I want to say, technology, computing, and so on is not just about devices and algorithms. It's primarily, I would like to say, about people's hearts, people's spirits, and there's a lot that technology can do to support that. And it's something that we shouldn't forget about. There's an interesting concept called positive computing that I just wanted to put out there, along with the idea, the notion of digital well-being. And so as you go about your hackathon and your future work in this area, keep that in mind. Cognition plus affect both need to be taken into account. In any case, what is the future going to look like? It's entirely up to you. Thank you so much for stepping up and showing interest in this area. It is vital that people who have a pedagogical understanding are willing and brave enough to enter the, shall we say, technological sphere and make it meaningful to our learners. Thank you, everybody, and have a lot of fun during your event.